One of the best things that you can do for yourself and the garments that you're sewing is to create good habits from the start. These are things that you shouldn't even think about. They should just be on autopilot so that you can free up your brain space for important things like actual sewing and the garment construction and not putting things the wrong sides together, things like that. I have, over the many years of sewing, found so many different little habits that really help with the ease and flow and make the whole sewing process so much more enjoyable. And in this video, I'm going to show you the top 5 habits that I think that every sewer should create for themselves to make their whole sewing experience a much more pleasurable one. Welcome back, my lovely ladies and gents. Thank you for joining me for another sewing video. Now, if we haven't met yet, my name is Evelyn Wood and I am a vintage style dressmaker, and I also teach my sewing students a lot of good habits that they should try and get into from the very start, because we all know it's way harder to actually break a bad habit than it is to just start a new one from the beginning. So there's a few, these aren't tips, these aren't sewing tips, these are habits. So these are something that you should develop, that you just get into the habit of doing so you don't even think about it. Some are for safety, some are for workflow. Actually, all of them are really for workflow in the grand scheme of it all, to make it so much smoother process. I am all about streamlining those processes and making it easy and simple and quicker for you to do. Habit number 1. Take your foot off the foot pedal anytime that you're actually putting your hands near the needle. Now, this one is obviously more for safety reasons, and that's why we're getting it out of the way first. So one of the best habits that you can get yourself into anytime that you're going to go change the needle or do anything with your little fingers close to that needle, you want to take your foot off the foot pedal entirely, put it down on the floor beside, before then you continue to play around with anything where the needle is. Getting into that habit, like, you don't want your puppy to come in, you don't want a door to slam, you don't want your child to come in and all of a sudden startle you and you've slammed your foot down on the pedal accidentally and here are your fingers right here. We've all heard that horror story, and I don't want that to happen to you. Fortunately, that's never happened to me, but that's because I have developed this good habit of taking my foot off the foot pedal and just putting it down on the floor beside when I'm not sewing, and especially when you're going close to the needle. Habit number 2 that you want to get into is developing a habit of keeping all of your pieces or your garment or your cut garment pieces, keeping them all either right side up or wrong side up. Develop a system that works for you. So let me explain. So in my workflow, this is something that helps me so much. So whenever I come to the machine and I've got all of my pieces, laid out that I'm using, I always keep them either right sides together, or if I have to pull a piece out or say I take away a piece, I will always keep them out in front of me, right sides facing up. So that way, whenever I come back to this piece, I know that if it's facing upwards, I know that this side is the right side, because that's the habit I've developed. So this is really useful when, say, you get stuck on something and you don't finish it and you come back the next day and you look at these pieces and, like, this fabric here, you can't really tell the difference between right and wrong sides. You'll be able to know, because your system is that you leave them all right sides facing up or right sides together. Of course, it is a good idea to actually, if you can't tell the difference between the right and wrong side, to actually mark it with some chalk or a pin, but that's more like a tip. This is a habit that will get you in your workflow. Good habit number 3 is to trim and press as you go. So as you sew a seam, you want to press that seam. That way, when you come to sew the next section, the seam's already flat in place exactly where you want it to be, and it won't be flapping around and it won't get in the wrong place. So one of the best dressmaking habits to get a really neat finish on all your garments is to trim all those nasty threads out of the way so you don't end up with a mess, and press every seam as you sew it. Good sewing habit number 4 is to always leave a bobbin in your bobbin case. Never leave it empty. How many times have you left your sewing machine and you haven't put the bobbin back in, forgotten all about it, and just started sewing the next time? It never ends well, does it? So to avoid that trouble and having such horrible thread masses that you don't want to deal with, always make sure that you leave a bobbin in your bobbin case no matter what. Just always put one back in there so it's always got a bobbin in it and you won't end up with a lot of trouble that you don't want to fix. Good sewing habit number 5 is machine maintenance. That's right, maintain your equipment. One of the biggest habits you can get into is just to clean and de-fluff your machines. They're going to last us so much longer. They're going to sew so much nicer. And having a clogged up machine can actually cause you problems if you're having a lot of thread issues, like you're getting those horrible cotton locks, those big nested knots of horrible mess. It could just simply be because your machine is dirty. So invest in, it probably actually comes with your machine, to be honest. You've seen this, I know you have. It comes with your kit. So this little lint fluffer is your best friend. Get in the habit of doing it after every job, once a week, whatever it might be. You need to do it fairly regularly, and just you need to pull off like the metal plate on your machine, get right underneath there in the bobbin case. Particularly your overlocker is the biggest one to get rid of all the fluff because it has the most fluff on it. Whenever I see a sewing machine mechanic, I always like to ask them what their biggest advice and tips are for maintaining machine, and the one thing that they all say is just keep it clean of fluff. So that's from them to me. Now from me to you, keep your machine clean of fluff. And if you need to also oil your machine, get in the habit of doing that once a month or however long you need to do. Check your machine manual, it'll tell you what you need to do. So for not only better, smoother sewing, but get in the habit of having a checklist of what scheduling you will defluff and oil and clean your sewing machines and your equipment. It is these 5 good habits that I have found over the many years of my sewing that have really helped with my workflow. As I said, they aren't sort of tips for sewing, but they are habits that you want to develop. So they should be like, you shouldn't even have to think about these things anymore. It just becomes part of your routine and just what you do. And it's far easier to develop these things when you're just starting rather than trying to break bad habits. So my advice is to get in and just get in early with developing good sewing habits for not only safety and good workflow and machine longevity. Keep your equipment nice too. Now, of course, there are so many other good habits that I'm sure that I don't even know about either. So I really want to hear what either habit you think is the best through these, or please add your own. If you have something to add, put it in the comments below and make sure you all read them, because there'll be a little gold mine of extra tips and habits that we should all get into so that we can have a better workflow in our sewing. I really look forward to reading those. Remember to subscribe to my channel. Just have a check and make sure you're actually subscribed. If you like sewing, vintage and fashion and thrifting, we do all of that here all the time. So I really want to keep in touch with you. So make sure you subscribe, like this video if you liked it, and until next time, bye. Tip number... That chair was a little bit lower than I was expecting. Let's try that again.